Everything you desire is waiting for you to claim it. There's no creating involved, only invention through imagination and building through action. You are at the center of all your desires, dreams, and achievements. Welcome to Designing Your Life Today, the podcast that's all about your success, achieving your goals, building wealth through your business, and building your most passionate, powerful, magnificent life. Discover ways to use your purpose to connect you to serving others and living your dreams. I am Pat Council, and I know you are built by design to win. And it all begins with knowing how to tap into your success energy. Let's get on the path of discovery, decisive action, development, and unwavering dedication to your life's calling. It's time to embark on a transformative journey where your deepest passions become your most rewarding achievements. Embrace your power to shape your destiny, because this is your moment to do life with power. Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council. And on Designing Your Life Today, I want to ask you the question, are you protecting yourself from winning when it comes to doing something different, such as building a successful business or achieving your personal goals or any goals that you set? While we have the strong desire to achieve those goals, we have the strong desire to get the results that we see in our minds, that we envision, something somehow stops us. And most of the time, the thing that stops us is, us, the person that you see in the mirror. And as a business coach who also does a lot of life coaching as well, I find myself hearing certain statements that people make, and they're not doing it to hurt themselves, or they're not doing it to prevent themselves from winning, and they're not doing it consciously. A lot of times they're saying these things because they think they are protecting themselves from something. I'm not sure what that something is. However, what they're really doing is protecting themselves from winning. Now, that's kind of an oxymoron, if you will. And because who protects themselves from winning, right? And usually we need protection from something that's not good for us. However, if we have been programmed a certain way, either through by the environment that we come from, through upbringing, what we've been taught, which is still the environment that we've come from, or we've been taught this even after leaving that environment and going out into this beautiful world to live our lives, and we encounter certain situations that prevent us or cause us to want to protect ourselves from harm, but it eventually becomes something that we start doing to protect ourselves from winning. In other words, when we hear the right answers, when we realize we need to make certain changes, when we realize we have to make an adjustment in our behavior, or we have to shift our thinking, and even to shift our identity, we fight against that. For example, people will say things like, "This is just who I am." Or they'll say, "I know me." And one thing about that statement, when someone says, "I know me," on some level, we know ourselves in terms of knowing what we like and what we don't like. We know how we want to be treated, whether we accept, and often we accept the kind of treatment that's counter to what we desire. But we know these things, but the things that we don't really know, I think to any degree, is we don't know, let's say, our full capabilities. We know when we've kind of reached kind of a breaking point, I think, and sometimes we don't know that. But we know when we've reached a limit of sorts. In other words, if you do, if you do 20 push-ups and you have a trainer that says you've got to do 30, and you're thinking, wow, I used to be able to do 10. Now I can do 20. 20 is my limit. That is it. I know me. Well, the trainer is thinking you can do 30. And so the point I'm making here is that when you think you know yourself, you really don't know what your true limits are. Sometimes we have to test our limits, and we have to recognize how powerful and capable we really are. We're here to do life with power. And a huge part of doing life with power is about testing your limits, going beyond what you think your limits are, keeping an open mind and allowing yourself to experience something new, experience something that will teach you more about winning, that will take you close to the goals that you set, that will allow you to break past that point of where you are not achieving, where your business isn't growing, that will allow you to see obstacles as, let's say, learning opportunities, as opposed to seeing them as something that's causing you to shut down, something that's saying, hey, you know what? This is the best I can do. Or you spend your time protecting yourself from winning by constantly talking about what you're afraid of. Oh, you know what? Oh, I'm too shy to do sales. I'm too shy to get in front of people. And you're talking about something that is really kind of interesting, because when people talk about the fact that they are shy to get in front of people, and they're too shy to talk in front of people, the interesting part is when they're saying this, they're actually in front of a person. Okay. And sometimes they're in a group, okay, with perhaps a group of girlfriends, a group of guy friends, and they're sitting around a table talking about what they're too shy to do. Well, I can't talk in front of people. Well, if you have people sitting in front of you, then it's obvious you're not that shy. However, I get what the person is saying. What they're saying is, if it's a larger group. Sometimes when we're talking about sales, though, we're talking about one-on-one. So if you're not winning, sometimes it's because you're protecting yourself by talking about the things that you feel like you can't do, which means that you've closed off your mind to learning something new. So how do you get beyond that? And in order to get to where it is you really need to be in order to keep moving forward? Well, I'm going to share some things that you can do, or questions that you can ask yourself, that will help you, let's say, get a greater realization of who you really are, or put you on track to become the person that you truly desire to be. I have talked to people who fight so hard against their own success. And so I realized that they want to be successful, especially people who come to me for coaching. I know that they want to be successful. That's why they came to me, because they want to get to a certain point. But then sometimes I think what they think is I'm going to do the work for them. That's not what coaches do. When a coach coaches a football team, they don't coach the football team and then get out and play the game for them. Okay, so the coach works with them on the plan. They work with them, I guess, if you're talking about football, here are the plays you're going to run, and this will get us to the destination. This will allow us to make the touchdown and cross the finish line. So I'm mixing these up because I'm talking football, but at the same time, I'm talking about business, okay, or any other goal that you set out to achieve. Am I that skilled in football when it comes to talking about it? Not really, but I think I said everything right. So with that being said, you guys, a coach is not supposed to do the work for you. The coach is actually supposed to work with you on accomplishing a certain goal. In other words, helping you cross that finish line. But sometimes people will fight against themselves. They will fight against crossing their own finish line. Even when they don't have a clear plan, they work with a coach, they get a clear plan and they see, wow, this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be, until it's time for them to actually implement. In other words, take some kind of action. When it's time for them to start moving, then the fight, flight or freeze kicks in. And in this case, let's deal with the fight. And the fight comes in that they spend time kind of giving the pushback to the very person that's trying to help them or working to help them to succeed, working to help them reach the destination that they desire to reach. So the question becomes, again, are you protecting yourself from winning? Is this you? How many goals have you set this year that you've actually achieved, that you stay focused on? That instead of coming up with reasons why you can't succeed, you say, you know what? Why don't I look at some reasons as to why I can why I can achieve? So with that being said, it is important to always take a look at yourself, especially if you're the CEO of your company. If you're running your small business, or your corporation, your larger business, or if you're just my least favorite term is solopreneur, but let's call it that to illustrate a point, or if you're a solopreneur, in other words, you're doing a lot of your own work. And the reason why I say I don't like solopreneur, just so you know, is I've never met anybody who became a success solo. They had help from someone somewhere. Okay, even if it was virtually. So let's get back on track. But the point that I'm getting to here is that if you're the person that's stopping you, if you're the person who thinks that you're protecting yourself from something, only thing you're protecting yourself from is winning. So what do? How do you fix that? How do you actually start to get more in touch with you so that you can see you and make the necessary shift? First of all, if you're not winning, and this is the beautiful part, especially about business, because we're talking about business, but we're also talking about your personal goals as well. Everything or every good goal is measurable. Every real goal is measurable. And so when a goal is measurable, you can tell if you're doing what it takes. Even if you want to trick yourself, even if you want to not tell yourself the truth. Okay, so for example, I mean, if you're working on losing weight, you get on the scales is going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not. If you want to earn more money in your business, check your business bank account, check your what's coming in, the money that's come in the last week or 2 weeks or the last month. And if that has not increased or if it's gone down, well, numbers will tell you the truth. Everything that's measurable, okay, it will tell you the truth because you can measure it. You can see if it's moving up or if it's moving down. So it is important that instead of protecting yourself, and usually it's the ego that is always protecting us. The ego causes us to live in the past. The ego causes us to remember unpleasant things that happened to us, and it keeps us there. And so the minute we work on moving forward, we find ourselves coming up with reasons not to move forward. Listen, I've been there, done that. Okay. Because I've learned a lot of things in my life through trial and error, and I've shared this before. Nevertheless, I am open to always learning because I do not want to continue to always be on the side of error. It doesn't mean I have a problem with making a mistake. Do I like it? Not really. Do I have a problem with it? Not really. Why? Because I know I'm going to learn something. Okay. And I don't allow my ego to prevent me from learning something, or at least I hope I don't. Okay. And this is why it's important to really reflect on your life, reflect on where you are, be honest about where you are. Okay. And a lot of times, one of the ways that we protect ourselves, or some people protect themselves, is by blaming someone else. Okay. Oh, and I'm going to use the husband-wife scenario in this case. Sometimes the husband will blame the wife and talk about all the things that she isn't. Okay, and vice versa. The wife will do the same thing about the husband. But the one thing they never look at is they never look at themselves. They don't look at what they're doing to perhaps make her behave that way. Now, are they responsible for her response? Not really. But are they responsible for aggravating a situation that perhaps doesn't exist or creating an unpleasant situation that doesn't exist? Yeah, they are. Okay. So this can be on both sides. As I said, husband, wife, wife, husband. Okay. Sometimes the wife blames the husband for everything that isn't happening. Okay. Without realizing that, wait a minute, I'm here to help. And if they're not prevented from helping, then perhaps that's the job of the wife, to help me. So with that being said, let's press on. So how do you know if you're protecting yourself from winning? I've shared some insights there. You have to be very honest with yourself. Sometimes it stings a bit, but here's the beautiful part. It doesn't sting long, because you become empowered by recognizing that, wait a minute, I am in full control of making this amazing shift that will take me where I desire to be. I'm in full control of making this shift that will align me with the goals that I set, that will position me to run a very successful business. But here are some questions that you want to ask yourself so that you can start to, let's say, cause the obstacles to dissipate. Okay. Or at least start to gain some clarity on how you can deal with the obstacles. See, a lot of times obstacles, there are some obstacles that are created outside, okay, where other people perhaps will try and prevent you from winning. But know this, no one can stop you from winning once you choose to win. But one of the greatest obstacles of all is the obstacles that we allow to exist inside, in our minds, how we think about things, and how we view things. And most importantly, how we view ourselves. So here are some questions that you want to ask yourself in order to start dealing with all of this. First of all, if you're not getting the results that you desire, if you're not winning the way you know that you can win, or you hope to win based on the goals that you set, ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What is stopping me from winning? What is stopping me from moving forward? What am I afraid of? You need to know what you're avoiding. And sometimes if you need help with that, that's where a good coach comes into play, because a good coach does not always tell you what you want to hear. That's where a good coach comes into play. That's where, in some cases, if it's on a more intense level, you may need therapy. Okay. But at the end of the day, it is important, therapy, coach, or no therapy. At the end of the day, even if all three were involved, or all two, therapy and coach, or just therapist, however you want to mix it up, at the end of the day, it is important that you learn to be still, that you learn to spend time with you so that you can really see what's going on. You can be honest with yourself. What am I avoiding? There are people who don't want to, let's say, remarry after a divorce because they had an unpleasant divorce, instead of looking at what can they change in themselves so that they can make better choices. Or instead of recognizing that, wait a minute, just because this person was this way, that does not mean, if it's male, that doesn't mean every man is going to be that way. If it's female, doesn't mean every woman is going to behave this way. So they prevent themselves from their own happiness, and they're protecting themselves, in that case, from winning. So they're not going to get the life that they desire. So there's no power there. There's no doing life with power, because it is fear in the background running the show. So what are you avoiding when it comes to your business? Are you afraid of sales? Are you afraid to ask for the order? In other words, ask people to do business with you. Are you afraid to market yourself? I can't tell you the number of people who become very shy when it comes to branding or personal branding. Okay. They don't want to personally brand themselves. Well, I don't want too much attention. What kind of thing is that? The attention might be on you, but the purpose of the attention, it is not to all about you boosting, let's say, you, so you can say, look at me, look at me. It is about you actually branding yourself and boosting yourself and being more visible so that people can find you and get the help that they need, or get the product that they need that will still help them, or get the whatever they need, even if it's entertainment, so they can come to you so they can relieve some stress. Okay. Sometimes, we have to, I don't know, find a place where we can go and have fun. Okay, it's a good stress release. But if nobody can find you because you're so shy, well, you're doing a disservice, not just to yourself, but also to the future customers or the people that are actually looking for you. You see, when we go into business, we're looking not just to build something that's going to make us money for the most part. Some people do go into business because they say, ooh, this is going to be a real money maker. Listen, you go into a business that aligns with your purpose. Yes, it will still be a real money maker, but at the same time, it won't be a money maker, and you won't stay in business if you keep trying to protect yourself from winning because you're shy. You see, shyness, and this might sting a bit, but shyness is kind of a selfish thing. But here's the good part. Okay, usually I give the caveat. In this case, I'm going to give the good news. The good part is that this is something that you can work on. You can get help with that. Again, therapists, perhaps a coach may be able to help you with that. Not so sure. They can give you some insight. I will say that a good coach can give you insight. But at the end of the day, you have to get some information and take in information that will cause you to shift your identity. So what are you avoiding? Answer that question. Spend some quiet time and write down at least 3 things. And once you write those 3, see if you can write 3 more, and just keep writing until you have created a picture so that you can see yourself. You can see what you're doing to stop you from winning, what you're doing to protect yourself from winning. Because we think we're protecting ourselves, but we're doing it in a way that's counterproductive to actually protecting ourselves. For example, there are people who do things to protect themselves from winning by, as I said, I use branding, personal branding. They're being shy, and as a result, no one can find them. They've spent money setting the business up, trying to put the business out there, or putting it out there. No, trying. I don't like that word, but let's go with it because that's what they're doing. Trying to put the business out there, and then they go into shy mode, or they do it haphazardly or half-heartedly because there's something in them that makes them afraid to step out and be bold. In that case, they're protecting themselves from winning. Okay, so you guys get the oxymoron there. So, what am I avoiding? That's the first question. Here's the second one. What am I afraid of? Ask yourself. You need to know what you're afraid of. There are people who will boldly say, I'm afraid of nothing. I'm one of those people who will say, I'm not afraid of anything. And then I give my fine print, and my fine print says, except snakes, lizards, and frogs. Okay, so in that case, yeah, and I don't like scary movies. I'm not afraid of them. Okay, let's just say if I watch them, then I become afraid. But I don't like them. So maybe we can put those under the category too. I'm afraid. I heard a pastor say something that I will never forget, and I agree with him 100%. He says that scary movies are like pornography to the soul. And it really is. It skews your thinking. Okay. And I've met people who watch scary movies all the time. They're not bad people, but they have a different way of thinking. Okay. And it's not always productive. So back on track. So what are you afraid of? You want to put those things down. So for example, when I gave my little fine print, snakes, frogs, lizards, well, I don't mess with the snake. And one of my friends said something and I'm adopting this from her. And she said, you know what? She says, I don't bother the snake and he doesn't bother me. And that's how I look at it. I won't bother them. Okay. But I'm going to say I won't bother them if they don't bother me. But I have kind of programmed my mind to think that if a snake does challenge me and they're a threat somehow, yeah, I'm going to protect me. Okay. Now I'm not protecting myself from winning in that case. I'm protecting myself so that I can win. You see the difference? Okay. So what are you afraid of? All right. So what am I avoiding? What am I afraid of? And then here's the third question you want to ask yourself. What do I need right now? You need to know what you need. What will help you get beyond these obstacles, okay, that you have created. And I'm being very blunt, that you have created, and you've created them by allowing a certain concept of yourself or a certain identity to persist, to exist. So, for example, when someone says, sometimes I'm coaching a person and they go, well, I don't like social media because there's too much gossip on social media. And then my question is always, so why are you looking at the gossip? You're not on social media to read the gossip or watch the gossipy videos or whatever. That's not why you're on social media. We're talking about you building a business here. You're on social media so that to put out information so that people can get a better understanding of your business and a better understanding of who they are about to do business with. So that's the thing that you want to pay attention to. Be honest about what it is you need. Okay. And be honest about what it is you're not doing, when you're not doing the things to get what you need. Okay. So if I'm not on social media, and I need to be on social media to get my business out there, I'm protecting myself from what? Oh, the gossipy videos that I watch. Right? So I'm protecting myself from winning. So it's important that you answer these three questions if you're not moving forward. In order for you to gain momentum and to keep your momentum going, this is something that you want to stay aware of. In my own business, and I've been in business for a long time, more than 30 years, and I've had ups and downs in my business, but I can tell you this much. When I'm up, I'm always looking to see how can things be better. Okay. I'm grateful for where I am, but I'm always making sure I've given my best. I'm always working to make sure I'm coming up with something that will allow me to serve my purpose and help someone. So that's the other side. When things are down, then I look to see, wait a minute, if things are down, and I don't look at the economy as, oh, it's down. The economy is always going to go up and down, but the object of the game for me is to make sure I'm delivering my best. I find that in the name of excellence, even when the economy is up or down, people still tend to thrive. So with that being said, when it's down, I do take a look to see, why is my business down? Or if I'm not achieving a personal goal that I've set, why am I not achieving this goal? What am I avoiding? Okay, what am I afraid of? What's stopping me? So I do ask myself these questions. And what do I need right now? What do I need so that I can win? What action must I take? So when you start to look at all of that, this is great because this allows you to acknowledge what you feel. Once you've acknowledged what you feel and you have an understanding of what's going on with you, understand this. When things aren't working for you, it's not always on the outside. It's not the president's fault. It's not the economy's fault. It's not that person who made you angry's fault. It's about you not making a decision for your own life. So acknowledge what you feel, then take control. And you can start by writing down some solutions or speaking to someone that can give you some insight. You know, I've had some great mentors over the years. And one of my best mentors, he passed away a couple of years ago, 2004. So, but he had been my mentor for, I don't know, more than 20 plus years. So I learned a lot from him, but I can tell you whenever things, weren't, once I figured out what was going on with me, I would have a conversation, with him and he would listen and he would ask me the right questions. And it wasn't always the easy questions. And I'd have to be very honest with myself. And so then I would get my insight and I would go, and I would come up with a solution, or I would put out what I thought was a solution. And he would go, now you're thinking. So, and I would always, of course, feel good about that. So the point that I'm making is acknowledge what you feel. Take control by perhaps writing down what you think the solutions are. And then you can speak to someone who has some experience in that area. Okay. Or a kind of wisdom. Okay. That can really give you the insight that you need. Most of the time we think I don't feel motivated, and we're going to wrap up on this. It's not about motivation a lot of times. As human beings, it's easy to get motivated, believe it or not. Sometimes we get up and a person will watch something funny on television, or they get up in the morning and they go, "Ooh, the sun is shining. I think we're going to go outside," and they feel good. Then it's time for them to sit down and do their work, or it's time for them to work on their personal goals, and all of a sudden they're not motivated. Does not necessarily mean that you've chosen the wrong goals. Doesn't mean that. What it means is that you have to find out what's going on with you. You have to figure out, what are you protecting yourself from? The thing that you're protecting yourself from may be the very thing that you need to stop protecting yourself from. Okay. And finally, shift your identity. Once you have discovered what's going on with you, see the you that you would like to be. Now, here's my caveat. Just because you see yourself as the ultimate winner, okay, that does not mean that you're not going to have challenges. That doesn't mean that you're not going to want to fall back into this person who goes into protection mode. Okay. So it does not mean that you won't be that person who fight against your own success. But what it does mean is that if you continue to reinforce your new identity, it will become less and less, where you start to, protect yourself from winning, where you start to fight against your own success. And you're going to find that in your own mind, you will instantly see what you're doing, and you're going to hopefully stop it and not do it. And you're going to tell yourself that this is not who we are. Embrace your most powerful self. Remember, you're here to do life with power. You are built by design to win, but you have to use the tools that you've been given. And one of the greatest tools that we have of all is to have an amazing mind and a wonderful soul. Okay, the soul, the mind, will, and emotions. That's what's in your soul. And when you learn how to use these so that you can win and point it towards winning, you're going to win. Okay. You are not here to lose. That's not why anyone's here, whether it's in business or in your personal goals. Once you make the identity shift, you have to, as I said, continue to reinforce it such that your momentum, you build that momentum. And eventually, it's kind of like, I guess, pushing a ball downhill. Okay. Or the object in motion tends to stay in motion. I think that was Newton's law, I think. So an object in motion tends to stay in motion. So once it keeps going, you keep reinforcing that identity. It's just going to become stronger and stronger, and it's going to overpower the very things that you're using to stop yourself from winning. One last example, and this is a real example. I had someone come to me, and they wanted to talk to me about coaching, and we talked about it. And as I listened to that person talk, he kept telling me, for everything, I would say, he kept telling me all the reasons why he couldn't do something. And he kept talking about everything that was going wrong. And he kept talking about who he wasn't. He kept talking about what he didn't have. And then he started to talk about how some of the problems in society has caused his problems, and the list goes on and on. And of course, at some point, I realized that he had been protecting himself. Okay, so he was afraid. And I don't know where it stems from, because I'm not a therapist. So I really don't go into, okay, let's talk about your childhood. I do get an understanding of the person that I'm dealing with. However, as he started to talk, and so then I asked him the question, and you may have heard this question before. And I asked him, I said, let me ask you something. Why do you play to lose instead of playing to win? And I asked him if he was into sports. He says, yeah, I like to play basketball. So I said, when you play basketball, do you start thinking of all the reasons why you can't win? And he says, no, I go in and I'm looking and I'm assessing, and I'm seeing how I can make the goal, make the basket. So I said, life is the same way. Instead of thinking of all the ways that you can't win, why don't you think of how you can win? And why don't we create a strategy that allows you to win, that positions you to win, such that you're not protecting yourself from winning, but you're protecting yourself from perhaps some of the things that that may really be harming you. And by protecting yourself from some of the things that may be harming you, I'm talking about things that are keeping you from winning. And so let's protect yourself by shutting those things down or dealing with those things, even if it means going to therapy. So the point that I'm making here is that as we started to talk back and forth, he started to realize, he said, you know what? He said, this is why every time I start a project, it fails, because I start looking at all the reasons why I can't win, all the reasons why this project, everything that's going wrong. He said, even the people I connect with, I find things wrong with every single one of them, even though they're very good people. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, is this you? Do you find things wrong? Do you take every failure thought that perhaps someone has put into your head or something that someone has said about you, who you are, who they think you are, and you know that this is not you, but you allow it to dictate your life? Do you use all of that to keep you from winning? You put up this barrier to life. So I want to encourage you not to put up this barrier to life, but I want to encourage you to make the decision that, hey, you know what? I'm going to win. And I'm going to stop protecting myself from winning. And I'm going to protect myself from, let's say, all of the craziness that comes at me that keeps trying to put my identity in weak mode, in failure mode. Okay. You are built by design to win. So with that being said, you guys, make the decision. We're about to go into the next month, and we've got some great things coming up. Our Summer Success Series is right around the corner, so stay tuned for that. And so I hope you really did get a lot of momentum going this month. If not, don't worry, you'll get a do-over coming next month because we got good things. So in the meantime, I want you guys to remember, you are here to live your dreams. You are here to build your magnificent life. So remember to do life with power and keep knowing that you are built by design to win.